I'm Candace Calderon. I'm tour director for the Fresno County Historical Society.
My name is Elizabeth Laval, and I currently serve as the president of the Fresno City and County Historical Society.
Thank you. Let's just get right into it. So, your grandparents always had international guests in the home that you were raised in, and they had the perspective of borders do not exist in this home. They don't end. So that was a constant reminder. Can you tell us about one of your grandfather's mottos?
Well, I think that because my family on my dad's side, the Laval side, were very much already in international business by the time I was born. Most families say, okay, little children are annoying, be seen and not heard. But our family's responsibility was children should be seen and ask intelligent questions. My great grandparents, my mom's side, both sets, came from Italy, southern Italy, as most immigrants did. They lived here on the west side near Kearney Mansion. In fact, one of the homes was directly on Kearney Boulevard, and it's still there. But they were primarily farmers initially. The side more people are familiar with is the Laval side. And Pop Laval was my great-grandfather. He was the photographer that took so many photos celebrating the valley and all of its history. We've digitized about 30,000 or so in a very high resolution, so we can make big banners and things that we can share with people. Then Pop's son was Claude Jr., because Pop's real name was Claude Constant Laval Sr., but everybody called him Pop. Claude Jr. was an inventor, my grandfather, and he had over 200 patents by the time he passed away. But he also invented the camera that could underground survey. The second one was the sand separator. It separated solids and liquids, which is why he had so much business in the Middle East. My dad was Jerome Laval, and his brother is Claude Laval III, who's still alive today in 2024. And Claude worked with my grandfather through the businesses, and my father, Jerry, took over the camera, the photographs, kind of the stuff that I do. So it kind of passed down our line. I lived in Tokyo for, just over 5 years. And I worked for a company called Dents. We produced international events all over the world. After I left Japan, I went to Sydney and took a position as the vice president for international relations. My office was in Sydney. Most important thing was that the ATP Tour was able to bring the first sanctioned international event back to South Africa after they were all sports were banned by the International Olympic Committee due to apartheid. And I got to help produce the first international tennis event back in South Africa in the early 90s, and it was the World Doubles Finals. There were so many significant things working in 42 countries, mostly underdeveloped as far as sports and tennis go. That one was clearly something that will never leave me. And I received a little statue of a Zulu warrioress. Wow. That I've told my children, there's lots of things you can just get rid of someday, but this goes to my daughter because she's a warrior too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Clearly cultural differences were significant, and I think that I was able to preserve myself in the sense that I was conscientious of not foregoing my own beliefs for the sake of someone else's beliefs, but also admiring and learning about their beliefs wherever I was. It would not be true to say that there weren't a lot of guys who thought it was crazy that there was a woman in men's professional sports at that level, especially at that time. But I knew the world better than they did. I had traveled a lot and worked a lot. I was in Sydney. I was just getting ready to start working on the 2000 Sydney Olympics. And this was around late 1992, early 93. And we learned my father had cancer. So I came back for family. That is really, I'll say this, when I was traveling around the world and you asked how I preserve myself, one thing I didn't mention that's super important to me, I always knew I had my home in Fresno, my family in Fresno to go back to.
You directed and produced national content, which led to an Emmy Award for you. And you brought national attention to Fresno. What was challenging about trying to get locals to believe that Fresno could produce and deserve national attention?
When my father passed, a little time passed, I had 2 little children. I was working with the Pop Laval Foundation, primarily learning a lot of techniques about how to deal with historical photos. Then my husband passed away. So I went to PBS around 2012. One of the subjects that was so close to my heart was the internment of Japanese Americans in the Valley and across America, the west side, the west part of America, during World War II. So this film evolved into what was called Silent Sacrifice. But this film was so meaningful to me. It was shown across the country, and we won a regional Emmy for it. And probably that moment was unbelievable.
Where are you leading the Fresno City and County Historical Society today as president?
Well, around 2019, it was the centennial of the Fresno City and County Historical Society. And they knew they needed a new direction. Getting ourselves back out in the community, connecting with the groups that made particularly the West Side as vibrant and culturally, it's the tapestry, I always call it the tapestry of Fresno County. And also make sure our archives were able to be seen and viewed and enjoyed. What better thing to do than tell the story of all of the amazing groups that made their way to the Valley? That's why we put such an emphasis on oral histories, because who better to learn something from than the very people that lived it? So that is a little bit of our way. We've grown. We purchased an archive. People from the community will be able to research. They'll see permanent exhibits. We have a beautiful Chinese American exhibit. We will have our Sikh exhibits, our African American exhibits. All the cultures will be represented there. In fact, coming up in the next year, we'll be doing Hmong New Year and doing a huge exhibit at Kearney. And then we're working with the community to put on a Juneteenth event in 2024. And that's what makes me happy. The point being that in 50 or 100 years, when someone's looking back at that archive, they're going to see a multitude of points of view, not just one story in a newspaper. And that is super important to be able to craft that for the future. If I can see some of those come to fruition, that preserves me.
Yeah.
And it's not about me, because nothing I do is by myself. It's only because of the incredible people, not just on our team, but the partners we work with. CMAC, the Fresno Metro Black Chamber of Commerce, so many, there's too many to name. Partnerships are important. They're legacy building, and that's what we're trying to do.